As consultants to a global retail sales company, our goal is to understand the relationship between total sales and promotional markdowns and advise our client on how best to apply promos accordingly. Promos can have a negative, neutral, or positive impact on total sales. So we are specifically testing the one-tailed research hypothesis that total sales increase during promotional markdown periods. To reach a conclusion, we have to test the relationship between sales and not only promos, but also several other factors, such as weather, fuel costs, unemployment, cost of living, store location, and time of year. The benefit of proving and accepting our research hypothesis is a conclusive insight that promos should, in fact, be a key part of our clients' retail strategy going forward. With this conclusion, our clients should feel confident scaling promotional markdowns as a tactic to drive incremental sales. The client's first 4 questions can all be addressed via descriptive statistics. The null hypothesis for these questions are straightforward in the fact that they are testing for equivalence of a predetermined benchmark. From running descriptive analysis, we can conclude that total sales and average of total sales did, in fact, exceed $3 million and $20,000 at a $4.2 million and $20,498 respectively. Similarly, descriptive statistics prove that the standard deviation for total sales is greater than $10,000 at $19,798, and that total sales differ from across the 4 stores. The null hypothesis suggests that the promotional markdowns were equal across all 5 departments, with the data showing that the automotive department having the highest number of total sales. Automotive department having the highest total sales, and women's clothing department having the lowest sales. Using the two-tailed test, testing for a difference higher or lower than each other level of significance p-value equal or greater to 0.001. The null hypothesis, both holidays and non-holiday sales means are equal. Holiday sales are higher than non-holiday sales. The null hypothesis suggests that the Munch store was the highest grossing store. The data determines that that was not true, and the highest total sales for the stores was the Dubai store. Null hypothesis. There is no correlation. CPI does not impact total sales. The alternative hypothesis. CPI and total sales are correlated. Reviewing the data sample, looking specifically at how total sales and CPI are related, we can see that CPI plays a role of influence over total sales performance, but not one of any significance. To analyze this, we performed a bivariate correlation test, which came back with a negative 0.191 Pearson correlation ratio, indicating a negative relationship between the 2 variables. One can infer that the consumer price index influences total sales for each store, with total sales reducing as the consumer price index rises. This is a weak relationship, but not an insignificant relationship, with other variables likely to be better predictors of influence. We can reject the null hypothesis with these findings. The relationship between these variables is best seen evaluating each store location separately, as seen in the charts, as CPI appears to affect each store differently. The null hypothesis. There is no correlation between unemployment does not impact total sales. The alternative hypothesis. Unemployment and total sales are correlated. Reviewing the data for any correlation between unemployment and total sales revealed a Pearson correlation coefficient of negative 0.124. And like the relationship with CPI, this is not insignificant, but it is a weak negative correlation. This is seen having run a bivariate analysis and scatter plot for the data. And plotting on the scatter plot, this is very difficult to find the relationship between the two variables. As it was with a CPI comparison, it can be inferred that while there is influence between unemployment and total sales, where higher rates of unemployment means fewer sales, there is likely other predictors with more significant impact on annual sales. Reviewing the statistics by store, we can see the Pearson correlation is not of significance, and we cannot reject the null hypothesis. Null hypothesis. There is no correlation. Temperature does not impact total sales. The alternative hypothesis. Temperature and total sales are correlated. Reviewing the data for any correlation between temperature and total sales shows us a stronger negative correlation at negative 0.296 with a p-value of greater than 0.001. This was determined using a bivariate analysis and running a scatter plot graph. This tells us that as the temperature increases, sales decreases. This is significant for planning for both inventory and annual markdowns. We can infer that there is a seasonal effect on buying behavior from customers. This was more significant for London and New York and less for Munch and Dubai. We can reject the null hypothesis for these findings. Using a linear regression to see how each independent variable, temperature, CPI, and unemployment, correlates to the dependent variable, total sales, we can conclude that temperature has the greatest effect on total sales as it has the highest R-square of 8.7%. In other words, using the coefficient tables for every 1 unit increase in temperature, total sales drop by 433.6 units. Simply put, as temperature rises, the total sales decrease somewhat drastically, and therefore it has the greatest effect on total sales. Using a univariate general linear model, we can determine which store, if any, is the highest performer in houseware sales. According to our test of between subjects effective table, there is no significant difference between all 4 stores in houseware sales. This is further supported by a multiple comparison table, as not a single comparison between stores show a significant p-value. By using the same univariate general linear model from the previous slide to test the differences in electronic sales of all 4 stores, we can see that there is a significant difference, unlike the results of houseware sales. Our first table helps us to notice that there is, in fact, a significant difference, and our second table helps to narrow down where the significant difference lies. The mean difference of Store 3, London, is entirely negative, as, on average, they consistently have less electronic sales than other stores. What we have discovered. Temperature is major indicator of total sales. As temperature rises, total sales decreases. The London store tends to be the lowest performing in comparison to Munch, Dubai, and New York. Automotive markdowns are the most successful in comparison to houseware, women's clothing, men's clothing, and electronic markdowns. Generally, total sales decrease as temperature, CPI, and unemployment rises. The recommendations. Recommendation 1. Consider planning markdown events for times throughout the year coinciding with higher temperatures to encourage more traffic, brand awareness, and customer loyalty. Recognizing temperatures play a role in customer foot traffic and sales. Timing markdowns and company sales events give customers more incentive to visit during times of generally less foot traffic. Recommendation 2. Increase customer awareness and company utilization of online sales resources. Market products to customers, leveraging an omnichannel platform to meet customers where it is most convenient for them. Reducing the temperature influence over sales traffic. Increase customer loyalty and brand awareness, and to drive higher sales revenue, specifically in London.